The audience cheered as the familiar stage of Jimmy Kimmel Live lit up with energy. The band played, cameras zoomed in. Jimmy smiled and introduced a guest no one had expected: South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. She walked onto the stage with a calm, confident expression, her steps steady under the spotlight. People weren't sure what to expect. A Republican governor on late-night TV wasn't something you saw every day. But this wasn't just politics. This was something else. Something deeper. The first few minutes were polite. Jimmy asked her about South Dakota's landscapes, about her horse ranch, even about her book. Noem answered with charm. The audience laughed when they were supposed to. Then, something changed. Talk about the time you said carrying a gun was as normal as carrying your phone. Were you serious? Noem didn't flinch. I was absolutely serious. Freedom isn't a slogan where I come from. It's a way of life. Jimmy smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sure, but do you think everyone carrying weapons makes the country safer? That's the media's trick, she replied. Make freedom look dangerous and control look safe. The crowd was quieter now. Jimmy pressed again, this time referencing her criticism of vaccine mandates during the pandemic. You encouraged people to resist public health policies, Governor? Do you feel responsible for what that caused? Noem's tone stayed even, but her words cut sharp. I stood for choice. The same choice the media claims to support until it disagrees with them. The tension was thick now. The usual jokes were gone. No one was laughing. Kimmel tried to steer the conversation back to comedy. Okay, let's not start a war. You're not here to run for president, right? But Noem wasn't done. She leaned in. You joke about our freedoms, she said, staring him down, but you never live with the consequences. We do. The audience fell silent. Even the band sat still. The lights dimmed slightly. Something about her voice didn't sound politically, sounded personal, real. Kimmel opened his mouth to reply, but no words came. Suddenly, the screen behind them glitched. Just for a second. White flash, a black icon. Then a phrase in red. Project Echelon M-Class Protocol. Then it was gone. Replaced by the show's logo. But people saw it. The director in the control booth panicked. Was that in the feed? Technicians scrambled. It wasn't from us. What the hell was that? Back in the studio, Kimmel forced a smile. Folks, looks like we're out of time tonight. The broadcast cut early. Across the country, Twitter exploded. Reddit threads appeared within minutes. What was that symbol behind Kristi Noem? Why did they shut it down? In a dark, secure room somewhere far from Hollywood, a man in a government suit watched the footage again. He paused on the glitch, zoomed in, and narrowed his eyes at the words on the screen. Leaned back, picked up a phone, and spoke just 2 words. It's begun. 10 hours after the broadcast cut short, the internet had become a war zone. Clips of Kristi Noem's confrontation were everywhere. Millions watched her final words. You joke about our freedoms, but never live with the consequences. But what really stirred the public was the strange flash on the screen, a black symbol, and the phrase, Project Echelon M-Class Protocol. No one could explain it. The network said it was a technical error, but hackers, journalists, and amateur codebreakers weren't buying that. In a locked office in D.C., Maya Rahimi watched the footage frame by frame on her laptop. She was a respected investigative reporter, sharp, fearless, and familiar with covert operations. What she saw made her sit up straight. That symbol, she'd seen it before. Years ago, when working on a leak from within a NATO cybersecurity unit, she'd come across files marked with similar codes, E-class directives, Black Ops protocols, experimental surveillance systems. She thought they were rumors back then, conspiracy bait. Now she wasn't so sure. Maya typed a message to a secure contact. She attached the glitch frame and wrote only one sentence. Is this part of Operation Echelon? She hit send. Then, immediately, her screen went dark. Her laptop rebooted on its own. For a second, she stared at her reflection in the black screen. Then the system restarted slower than usual. Someone was watching her now. Meanwhile, in a private room at Langley, an intelligence analyst named Ryan Mendez was called in by his superior. A grim-faced woman handed him a file labeled OP-ECHO/K-NOEM Intercept Report Priority 1. Governor Noem wasn't supposed to trigger anything, she said. Ryan flipped through the pages. But she mentioned freedoms: media, manipulation, and surveillance. That lines up with the risk triggers. She didn't just mention it, his boss replied. She said the exact phrase. Ryan looked up. What phrase? The woman said quietly, "You never live with the consequences." That's the signal. He froze. Years ago, under a covert domestic monitoring initiative, now supposedly shut down, several public figures were unknowingly coded with monitor phrases. If one of them used a phrase too closely tied to classified triggers, it would activate hidden surveillance and protocol alerts. Noem had just crossed that line live on national TV, and it didn't end there. Back in South Dakota, Governor Noem's team scrambled to respond to the media storm. But every phone line in the governor's mansion was jammed. Aides couldn't connect to any secure channels. Even Noem's private email showed signs of intrusion. "We're being blacked out," her chief of staff whispered. Noem stood by the window, arms crossed. She watched two black SUVs parked across the street, unmoving. She didn't need confirmation. She knew the type: federal, unmarked, and waiting. "They're not going to arrest me," she said. "Then what are they doing?" Noem didn't answer. Instead, she turned to her aide and said, "Get me James O'Keefe." "O'Keefe?" the aide asked, confused. "The journalist from Veritas." "He was in the Kimmel studio," she replied. "He saw what happened. And he's not scared to expose the things no one else will touch." Back in Los Angeles, James O'Keefe was already working. He hadn't just seen the broadcast, he had recorded what the public didn't see. In the uncut footage just before the glitch, Kristi Noem's mic had picked up a line barely audible whispered from someone on set. "She's triggering M-Class. Cut the feed now." James stared at the waveform on his screen. The voice didn't match any of the producers or crew he'd interviewed. So who had said it? And how did they know what M-Class even was? His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice came through. "They're coming for Noem and anyone who caught what she triggered. You're already on the list." Click. It was 3:14 a.m. in Washington, D.C., but the lights inside the Justice Department building were still on. In a secure operations room on the lower floor, a team of government lawyers, analysts, and national security agents gathered around a glowing table screen. A new directive had just been issued from a classified clearance tier known only as Echo Tier 7. Its subject, Governor Kristi Noem, escalation review under Project Echelon Protocol. A man in a gray suit, known only by the code name Wrightson, stood at the head of the room. He didn't need to shout. When he spoke, everyone listened. "She wasn't supposed to go off script," he said. One of the analysts looked up. "It wasn't supposed to be live." "But it was," Wrightson replied coldly. "And she said the phrase," another agent added. "And the glitch we've confirmed, it wasn't an error. It was a remote signal. Someone triggered a diagnostic override." The room fell silent. Wrightson folded his arms. "That signal wasn't from us, which means someone inside the system is waking up a program that should have stayed buried." He pointed at the screen, where the phrase flashed again: Project Echelon M-Class Protocol. Meanwhile, in a rented apartment above a bookstore in Sioux Falls, Kristi Noem was wide awake, pacing. Her security detail had been quietly replaced by unmarked agents. She no longer knew who was protecting her and who was monitoring her. Her chief of staff entered, holding a burner phone. "He's ready." She picked it up. On the other end, James O'Keefe's voice came through. low and tense. "They're calling it M-Class," he said. "It's real. And I think it ties back to something called SIGMA Aurora. Ring a bell?" Noem stopped pacing. "Yeah," she said. "It was a classified cybersecurity test that DHS ran in 2016, supposedly never activated." James continued, "Well, it's active now. Someone in the intelligence community embedded keywords into the media system trigger phrases that, if spoken live, would activate surveillance and suppression protocols." Noem blinked, "And I walked right into it." "You didn't walk," O'Keefe said. "You kicked the damn door down." Outside her building, 2 black vehicles started. Up, Noem's aide rushed in, breathless. "They're pulling out of formation." Noem didn't wait. She turned to the aide. "Get my speech drafts, all of them. Why? I need to know which ones had the trigger phrases in them. If this was planted, someone wanted me to say it." Back in Los Angeles, James O'Keefe sent a copy of the full broadcast, including the whispered line, to an encrypted server in Europe. But 5 minutes later, his laptop locked. Access denied. Source under audit. His backup phone buzzed. A single message appeared. "O'Keefe, you've triggered M-Class. Delete what you saw, or disappear." He looked up, breathing hard. "Too late?" he muttered. "I already sent it." Elsewhere in Virginia, a dark room illuminated by red lights showed 4 people seated around a circular table. On a large screen in front of them was a paused video, Kristi Noem mid-sentence, pointing at Kimmel. One man spoke without looking. "Away. She can't go to ground. She disappears, we lose control of the story." A woman beside him replied, then flipped the narrative. "Paint her unstable. Get a friendly media anchor to say she stormed off due to stress." Another voice added, and leak a doctored clip showing her making threats. "The public will forget the truth." The 4th person said only 2 words. "Activate Pandora." The screen blinked. A second video loaded, never before aired. It was from 3 years ago. Kristi Noem. A secret meeting. A voice saying, "If this ever leaks, they'll burn you alive on TV." The others nodded. "Let's burn her," one of them said. In the early morning light of South Dakota, the skies were clear. But inside Kristi Noem's private office, tension hung like smoke. Her aide Josh had locked the doors. The curtains were shut. The hum of white noise machines filled the background. The governor sat at her desk, eyes locked on a thick envelope. Inside were speech drafts from the past 2 months. Josh placed his hand on the chair. "We found it." He slid a page forward. A paragraph was circled in red. "And when the elites laugh at our freedom, they forget. This isn't entertainment, it's consequence." Kristi's expression didn't change. That's the sentence. The trigger. Josh nodded. "Same phrasing you used on Kimmel's show." "They baited me," she said. But just as she reached to pick up the page again, her phone vibrated. Unknown caller. She hesitated, then answered. A deep, mechanical voice came through. "Governor Noem, you've breached Project Echelon containment. You have 24 hours to stand down or risk full classification." Then the call ended. She stared at the phone. "They're using Depop's language. Full classification, that means erasure." Josh swallowed hard. "We need help." "I already asked for it," Kristi replied. "From someone they can't silence." Across the country in New York City, James O'Keefe stepped out of a cab and walked into a rooftop apartment. He carried a locked briefcase and a look of urgency. Inside, a tall woman stood waiting. Maya Rahimi, a foreign policy journalist turned whistleblower. She once exposed human rights abuses in Syria. Now she worked from the shadows. O'Keefe opened the case and pulled out a USB drive. "This contains a full log of server pings from the night of the interview," he said. Kimmel's show wasn't just broadcast, it was scanned live by an unregistered node. "I traced the signal to Fort Meade, but the endpoint vanished." Maya's brow furrowed. "Fort Meade means NSA, but unregistered. Exactly. It means someone's running ghost operations inside the system. She took the drive, I'll decrypt it. But if you're right, this could be bigger than Echelon. It could be Atlas. O'Keefe flinched. Atlas is just a myth. Is it? She said. It was designed to respond to national sentiment destabilizers, a program that could override live broadcasts, black out journalists, even redirect satellite eyes. Only a few believed it existed. Maybe we're about to prove it. Does? Meanwhile, back in Washington, D.C., inside the Eisenhower Executive Office building, a secure elevator descended into the sublevels. Two men in Navy suits exited and entered a long, silent hallway. At the end stood a steel door. It opened to reveal Ops Room Sigma Red, access only. Inside sat 3 senior intelligence officials and one grim-faced woman in a military uniform, General Alice Tenner. A screen played the Kimmel interview on loop. Governor Noem said the phrase. One of the analysts confirmed. Public exposure is contained for now. But O'Keefe and Maya Rahimi are digging. They've breached surface data. General Tenner's voice was hard. They're in breach of national security. Another officer spoke. So is Noem. We can't allow a sitting governor to reveal embedded systems. She connects. Project. Echelon 2 past voter monitoring protocols. Then we lose the public, General Tenner finished. And control of the narrative, a long silence followed. Then she said, we don't arrest Noem. That would make her a martyr. So, what do we do? Tenner looked straight into the camera where Noem's frozen image stared back. We erase the message, not the messenger. Elsewhere, in a digital lab in Prague, Maya Rahimi plugged in the USB. Lines of encrypted code filled the screen. Suddenly, a new file popped up. Video file, redacted memo. Project Atlas, subnode protocol origin. Joint NS-AGCHQ. Ops, her heart stopped. Atlas wasn't a myth. And now they were all inside it. Maya Rahimi stared at the screen, barely blinking. The decrypted file now open in front of her was a video. Its timestamp read, October 12, 2023, 14 UTC. In the frame, a dimly lit conference room. 4 men and 2 women sat around a circular table, faces mostly obscured. A blurred Pentagon logo flickered in the corner. Then came a voice calm, deliberate, and chilling. The purpose of Project Atlas is to monitor rising sentiment threats in real time. Governors, mayors, influencers, anyone who destabilizes perception on a national scale becomes a classified trigger entity. Once flagged, our system routes the signal to neural review, followed by live intervention protocols. You must remain invisible always. The screen went black. Maya whispered to herself, it's not just surveillance. It's preemptive media control. She immediately uploaded the video to a private cloud server, adding triple-layer encryption. Then she called Kristi Noem. The line clicked. Governor, I have proof. Atlas is real. And it's tracking live sentiment through entertainment feeds. They flagged you the moment you said the word consequence. Noem's voice was quiet, but steady. Then I need to speak. On my own terms. You can't go public through the news, Maya warned. They'll intercept it. You need a platform they can't predict. Noem didn't hesitate. Send it to Joe Rogan. Uncut live. Tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, in Langley, inside a black site operations room, General Tenner received an alert. Subject, Noem Rahimi. O'Keefe coordinated activity spotted via nonlinear spread model. Her aide spoke urgently. They're preparing a rogue broadcast. Likely timed to bypass major network sensors. Tenner's eyes narrowed. Use the override clause. We preempt it. Roll out Operation Rainfall. Discredit, divide, disappear. What about the Atlas program leak? She stood. We don't deny it. We call it Russian misinformation. And we bury the truth under 50 layers of fake ones. Back in South Dakota, Kristi Noem walked to her barn. She needed silence to think. Horses neighed in the distance. Her security detail waited outside as she paced inside the old wooden structure, talking into a burner phone. Maya, I want the files sent to 3 people. One in D.C., one in London, and one in Johannesburg. If I disappear, they release everything. You're going dark? Maya asked. I'm going rural, Kristi replied. Atlas can't track in analog dead zones. And I know a place. She hung up. That night, a small group met secretly inside an old radio tower in the Black Hills. Among them was James O'Keefe, now carrying a satchel of satellite phones and backup drives. He nodded to Noem. We'll reroute through Mexico City and Iceland. If Atlas intercepts it, they'll have to go public with the block. Good, she said, 'cause this time we control the signal. Hours later, a live video appeared on hundreds of Telegram channels and private streaming servers. The title, Project Atlas, the Shadow Net Inside America. Noem sat in front of a wooden wall, wearing no makeup, no suit. It's just a plain shirt and tired eyes. This isn't a political message, she began. It's a human one. For too long we've trusted that the truth would survive exposure. But that's no longer the case, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just about me. It's about you, your voice, your reality. She held up a small black chip. It says part of the Atlas program. It reads emotion from broadcast signals, tells a central system when the public starts feeling too much. Fear, rage, empathy, anything unpredictable. And when that happens, the feed is cut, or worse. Across the country, viewers watched in stunned silence. In New York, in Kansas, in Berlin, and in a dark government room in Virginia. General Tenner's hand trembled as she crushed a coffee cup. Cut the power. To the tower. But we don't control South Dakota utilities, her aide said. Then crash the grid. On screen, Noem's voice trembled but never cracked. You don't need to believe me, she said. Just remember this moment. Because if the screen cuts now then, you'll know. She paused. Then the screen went black. For 5 full seconds, the world held its breath. Then screens across America lit up again with the feed from Kristi Noem's bunker. But with emergency broadcasts, buffering icons, and strange error messages. A quiet panic swept across private networks while government servers flooded with noise. In New York, the anchor at WCN hesitated on live air. We are receiving unconfirmed reports of an unauthorized satellite stream hijacked from inside U.S. territory. Officials say it may be a hoax possibly linked to foreign cyber activity. But our sources tell a different story. She looked off camera, then back into the lens. And if what we just witnessed is real Project Atlas, may not be conspiracy theory, it may be operational. Meanwhile, in the Black Hills of South Dakota, Kristi Noem and her small team sat in the dark. The power was out. But not because of a local outage, because the transformer was physically destroyed. The technician who checked it found scorch, marks on the circuit box, and a strange black residue. It wasn't an accident. They tried to fry us, James O'Keefe said, brushing ash from his jacket, but they failed. Pam Bondi, newly arrived from Florida, stepped into the barn, holding a briefcase. We just confirmed multiple utility failures across 7 conservative counties. Grid attacks. Coordinated. This is not just retaliation. It's a warning. Kristi turned to her. What's in the case? Bondi flipped it open. Inside were 3 sealed folders marked with red stamps. Echelon protocols, Atlas sentiment maps, intervention. Logs 2017202, for these were leaked by a DHS agent. They show names, politicians, celebrities, past governors, all flagged by Atlas and suppressed some. Arrested quietly, others blackmailed into silence. Noem pulled out 1 page. Her own name was highlighted. So was Maya Rahimi's. So was a senator who had died suddenly last year. O'Keefe's voice turned cold. They're not watching for enemies. They're shaping the next decade. In D.C., a private jet landed quietly at an undisclosed airstrip. General Tenner stepped out, flanked by 3 agents and a military-grade briefcase. "We've entered Atlas Phase 3, she said into her phone. "No more leaks, no more talk. Shows anyone speaking out is now considered a live destabilization asset." "What about Kristi Noem?" There was a pause. "Containment, if possible. Otherwise, neutralization." But Tenner wasn't aware that inside her own agency, someone had switched sides. Agent Colby Winters, a systems analyst with top secret clearance, had already downloaded a full copy of the sentiment flags database onto a microdrive. And he wasn't hiding anymore. That night, he called Maya Rahimi from a blocked line. "I saw your name," he whispered. "I saw everyone's. Who else?" Maya asked, her voice tight. "Mayors, governors, even late-night hosts. Anyone? Who pushed back anyone who caused emotional shifts larger than 2.7% in the national feed? That's the threshold. That's what triggers Atlas." Maya didn't speak for a moment. "Then, meet me in Kansas City. Bring everything." Hours later, they met in a dark train station cafe. Maya opened her laptop. Colby connected the drive. The screen lit up with color-coded clusters, names, timestamps, and a label that made Maya's heart stop. "Social stability overrides in effect since January 6, 2021, she scrolled. On the screen, a line of red boxes labeled "Voices removed from feed distribution." Hundreds of names, dozens she knew. Most still alive. Many vanished. Colby looked at her. "If we release this, we burn the whole system." Maya nodded. "Then we do it in one shot." Meanwhile, in a government van parked outside the cafe, a Black Ops team listened through directional microphones. The lead agent gave the order. "We go silent entry. No kill order unless absolutely necessary." But as the team moved in, Maya and Colby slipped out through a freight tunnel behind the kitchen. Bondi had arranged it. She knew they were being watched. A text buzzed on Maya's phone as they emerged into the rail yard. "From unknown, they're coming. You have 6 minutes. Upload everything to Node 3AQ. It's off-grid Icelandic." They ran in a surveillance room hundreds of miles away. General Tenner stared at a satellite feed, showing 2 small figures fleeing into the dark. "Shut it down," she ordered. "Every node, every backup. Burn it." But it was too late. On a rooftop in Reykjavik, a tiny server farm touched by U.S. jurisdiction blinked to life. An automatic scheduler uploaded the full Atlas leak to 88 mirror sites around the world. At 2:33 a.m. EST, the following message appeared on millions of screens. "Project Atlas, your emotions have been monitored. Your thoughts have been flagged." This is not fiction. At 2:33 a.m. Eastern Time, the world changed. News anchors froze mid-sentence. TikTok feeds stopped. Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, everything flooded with one message. "Project Atlas. Your emotions have been monitored. Your thoughts have been flagged." This is not fiction. People didn't believe it at first. Then screenshots followed, maps, code fragments. Names of politicians and celebrities who had suddenly disappeared or been silenced in the past 3 years. Names of journalists who had been flagged, demoted, or digitally erased. Inside the Situation Room at the White House, all eyes turned to the screen. The president looked stunned. "Is this real?" she asked, her voice low. No one answered right away. Then the NSA director finally said, "Yes, ma'am. We confirmed at least 80% of the leak is authentic. This wasn't foreign. This was internal and the system. It's been running since 2021. Atlas was designed for counter-propaganda. But someone expanded its use to manipulate public sentiment, to monitor who was disturbing emotional stability." The president's face hardened. "Who authorized?" "This." Again, silence. Back in South Dakota, Kristi Noem stood outside a local fire station, addressing a crowd that had gathered after seeing the leak. She held no mic, no camera crew, just raw truth. "I told you they were watching. I told you this wasn't just politics, it was control. The crowd was quiet at first. Then someone shouted, "We believe you now." It grew into a chant. Noem didn't smile. She only nodded once, then turned to Pam Bondi and whispered, "Get Maya on the line. It's time." In an abandoned satellite tower in Montana, Maya Rahimi and Colby Winters had taken refuge. With Bondi's help, they had rerouted power and secured one of the last remaining cleanup links to broadcast. "This is Maya Rahimi." Her voice came over a raw, direct feed. "I'm not speaking as a journalist tonight, but as a citizen." She looked directly into the lens. "You have been manipulated. Your fear was measured. Your anger was used as data. Atlas is not science fiction. It is not a theory. It is real. And now it is exposed." She uploaded the last file, a 7-minute clip. Appeared a private briefing from General Tenor to intelligence officials. "We've mapped human emotional response to media down to 0.5-second fluctuations. If someone causes too much deviation from norm patterns, they are considered a national threat. We intervene before disruption spreads. Sometimes that means deleting accounts. Sometimes it means arrest. Sometimes adjustment." The last word echoed. Adjustment. Back in D.C., Senate leaders called emergency meetings. Lawmakers demanded answers. Protesters surrounded tech company headquarters. At 9:02 a.m., General Tenor was arrested by military police. She didn't resist in court. Her only words were, "We tried to protect the system from itself." A week later, Kristi Noem was invited to testify at an open congressional hearing. So was Maya, so was Pam Bondi, so was Colby. Live on every channel. When Noem took the microphone, the room went silent. She looked tired but clear. "You call us conspiracy theorists. You call us extremists. But all we did was ask questions. And now, because of those questions, you finally see the truth." Maya followed. "Don't let them hide behind algorithms again," she said. "Transparency is not optional. Privacy is not a privilege. It's your right." That day, Project Atlas was officially shut down. Legislation was drafted for public oversight of emotional data. Civil rights groups called it a victory, but not everyone celebrated. Some said Atlas would return under a new name, in a new form, in a quiet office. In London, a private company called Lucid Metrics began running emotional stability tests on content creators across Europe. A new algorithm, a new protocol in a glass-walled room. A British tech executive smiled as the screen lit up. Echelon layer activated. Sentiment deviance flagged. Kristi Noem, Maya Rahim, Colby Winters Bondi. He turned to his assistant. "Let's keep an eye on them, quietly this time." And just like that, the story wasn't over. It was only beginning again.